Tomorrow, when your lawyer calls, you'll finally understand why I never needed to take anything from you.
What are you talking about?
You spent 14 years thinking you knew me.
Nadia, what have you been hiding?
Nothing. But tomorrow, Marcus, you're going to discover just how badly you underestimated your wife.
Tomorrow, Marcus would learn something about the woman he had spent years underestimating. Something that would make him question every assumption he had ever made about their marriage. But before that happened, he needed to understand one thing. Nadia had never been the woman he thought she was. And the strangest part was that she had spent years allowing him to believe it. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Globe showing Europe Africa, tell me in the comments what country you're watching from. And if you're already enjoying the story, please hit the like button, it really helps the channel. But don't go anywhere, because the story has only just begun, and what Nadia is about to discover will change everything. Stay glued to the end. Red Heart. 3 weeks earlier, the newest luxury restaurant in Victoria Island was glowing beneath the Lagos evening sky. The restaurant was called the Ivory Palm. It was the kind of place where wealthy businessmen held private dinners, celebrities celebrated birthdays, and investors met behind closed doors. Everything about the restaurant was expensive. The handcrafted brass lights. The dark stone tables. The emerald velvet chairs. The locally inspired artwork covering the walls. Even the soft music seemed carefully selected to create an atmosphere of effortless luxury. Nadia stood quietly near the bar in a burnt orange gown with subtle green embroidery around the sleeves. She watched the room filling with guests. To everyone else, it was Nadia Adebayo's restaurant. To Nadia, it was 3 years of her life. She looked toward table 8. The light there is too strong, she told the manager. The manager looked up. Too strong. Just slightly. Lower it. He smiled. You always notice things nobody else notices. Nadia smiled faintly. That used to be my job. And it had been. When Marcus had opened his first small restaurant years earlier, Nadia had been there. She had helped redesign the dining space. She had worked on the menu presentation. She had introduced him to the financial consultants who helped stabilize the business. She had chosen locations. She had drawn layouts. She had spent nights studying customer flow and figuring out how to turn an ordinary restaurant into an experience people would remember. When they were still young and struggling, everything had been called ours. Our restaurant. Our dream. Our future. But somewhere along the way, ours had quietly become his. That evening, Marcus stood before a room filled with investors, executives, celebrities, and business owners. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit with a gold pocket square. He raised his glass. When I started 7 years ago, I had one small restaurant and one big idea. The room applauded. Nadia stood toward the back. She remembered that first restaurant. She remembered Marcus coming home exhausted with unpaid bills. She remembered sitting beside him at their dining table, helping him walk through expenses. She remembered telling him that customers were not only paying for food. They were paying for how the place made them feel. Marcus continued his speech. He thanked his executive chef. He thanked his management team. He thanked his investors. Then he turned toward a young woman standing near the stage. Her name was Tara Bello. Tara was dressed in a striking blue gown. Marcus smiled. And Tara has helped give our brand the voice it deserves. The room applauded again. Tara stepped closer to him. Her hand rested on his arm. For a little longer than necessary. Nadia noticed. She also noticed something else. Marcus did not move away. A woman beside Nadia leaned closer. Aren't you going on stage? Nadia looked at her. Why? I heard you designed this place. Nadia glanced toward the stage. Perhaps he mentioned it. He didn't. The speech ended. Her name was never mentioned. Not once. Later that evening, Nadia found Marcus near the glass windows. You forgot something. Marcus continued looking at his phone. What? Me? He finally looked up. Nadia's voice remained calm. You thanked everyone who helped build this place. Marcus sighed. Nadia, don't do this tonight. I'm only asking why my name wasn't part of the story. He glanced around the room. This is a business event. Nadia stared at him. And what am I? Marcus hesitated. You're my wife. The answer was simple. But to Nadia, it felt like a door closing. She looked around the restaurant she had once sketched inside an old indigo notebook. The curves of the ceiling. The arrangement of the tables. The wall behind the bar. She had drawn almost every important detail. Yet the story being told that night made her sound like nothing more than the wife of the man who owned the restaurant. I understand, she said. Marcus frowned. Understand what? Nothing. She walked away. Inside her handbag was the old indigo notebook. Its pages contained more than restaurant drawings. There were notes about property investments, business ideas, design concepts, agreements, plans she had postponed because she believed helping her husband succeed was the same thing as building their future. That night, Nadia asked herself a question that frightened her. If Marcus's name disappeared tomorrow from everything she had helped create, what would she have left? Then she realized she had been asking the wrong question. The better question was, if her own name finally appeared beside everything she had created, how big could her life become? A few weeks later, Nadia and Marcus attended a major business gala at the Royal Crest Hotel in Lagos. The ballroom glittered beneath enormous chandeliers. Business founders, architects, investors, and executives filled the room. Nadia arrived in a gold silk gown with deep green detailing. Marcus walked beside her. But when they entered, he immediately spotted Tara. I need to sit with the investors, Marcus said. Nadia looked at him. And me. You'll find someone to talk to. The sentence sounded harmless. But Nadia was beginning to understand something. The deepest cracks in a marriage often begin with very small sentences. Marcus crossed the room toward Tara. Together, they greeted investors. Nadia remained behind. Then someone called her name. Nadia Adebayo. She turned. A distinguished woman stood behind her. Her name was Miriam Okafor, a respected architect known for designing luxury hotels and commercial spaces across West Africa. I've seen the plans for the Ivory Palm, Miriam said. Nadia smiled. Thank you. The space is intelligent. Nadia hesitated. You know I designed it. Miriam raised an eyebrow. Of course. Nadia laughed softly. Apparently, not many people do. Miriam looked toward Marcus. She understood immediately. The award ceremony began. When Marcus's restaurant group was announced, he walked onto the stage to loud applause. Tara went with him. Nadia remained seated. Marcus spoke about expansion, customer experience, modern African hospitality, international growth. Nadia listened. Almost every major concept sounded familiar. She had written many of those ideas in her notebook. Then Marcus turned toward Tara. A great brand needs someone who understands how to tell its story. Tara has helped me do exactly that. The cameras flashed. Miriam leaned toward Nadia. You wrote that story first, didn't you? Nadia looked at her. I developed the original experience. Miriam shook her head. I'm not asking who designed the restaurant. I'm asking who imagined the story behind it. Nadia was silent. I did. Then why are you sitting here like a guest? The question hit harder than any insult could have. Nadia looked at her. I developed the original experience. Miriam shook her head. I'm not asking who designed the restaurant. I'm asking who imagined the story behind it. Nadia was silent. I did. Then why are you sitting here like a guest? The question hit harder than any insult could have. Nadia looked toward the stage. I am his wife. Miriam nodded. In marriage, you don't have to keep score of every contribution. True. But not keeping score is different from allowing your work to disappear. Nadia said nothing. Miriam continued. Women are often taught that supporting someone they love is noble. It can be. But support is a gift. When the person receiving that gift begins to believe it naturally belongs to them, something has gone wrong. Nadia looked down at her hands. For years, she had called her silence humility. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it had simply taught everyone around her that they could stop seeing her. After the award ceremony, Nadia found Marcus in the hallway. Can we talk? Now. Just for a minute. Marcus stepped aside. The brand strategy you presented came from my work. Marcus immediately looked irritated. Nadia, this again. It isn't about doing this again. I just want you to acknowledge it. We are married. Exactly. Why are you suddenly trying to divide every idea into yours and mine? Nadia almost laughed. I've been wondering the same thing. Marcus lowered his voice. Tara works full-time for the company. You asked me to step back. And I'm grateful. Nadia stared at him. Where is that gratitude? Marcus stiffened. She didn't want flowers. She didn't need her name written across every wall. She simply wanted the man who once sat beside her talking about their future to stop pretending that her years of contribution were insignificant. Marcus's phone lit up. Tara's name appeared. He immediately turned the screen over. But Nadia had already seen it. I'm going home, she said. Nadia. She stopped. Don't turn a beautiful evening into a bigger problem than it is. Nadia looked at him. I'm not turning it into a problem, Marcus. She paused. I'm beginning to see the problem that has been here for a long time. She walked away. As she passed Miriam, the older woman said quietly, don't wait until someone else puts a price on your life before remembering that you once had a voice in it. Nadia stopped. Her fingers touched the one edge of the indigo notebook inside her handbag. For the first time in years, she stopped thinking about everything she had helped Marcus build. She began thinking about everything she had stopped building for herself. A few weeks later, sunlight filtered through the curtains of the Adebayo family home. A brown leather folder sat on the dining table. Inside were divorce papers. Nadia sat at one end. Marcus sat opposite her. Beside him was his lawyer, Daniel Tate, a 46-year-old corporate attorney. The marriage had lasted more than a decade. Yet that morning, the two of them looked like business partners preparing to terminate a contract. Daniel pushed a folder toward Nadia. We've prepared what I believe is a generous settlement. Nadia didn't touch it. Generous according to whose definition? Marcus leaned back. Nadia, don't make this difficult. I haven't. I want this to end peacefully. Nadia looked at him. Dignity is a beautiful word when the person living is also deciding how much the person being left should receive. Daniel adjusted his glasses. You should have your own lawyer review the proposal. I will. Marcus seemed surprised. Perhaps he had expected tears. Perhaps he had expected Nadia to fight over the house. Perhaps he had expected questions about Tara. Instead, she simply opened the folder. The offer included a luxury apartment, an SUV, monthly financial support. Marcus's business assets would remain entirely under his control. Nadia read everything carefully. Then she closed the folder. I don't need the apartment. Marcus looked up. Then the house. No. The car. No. The financial support. No. Marcus gave a quiet laugh. This isn't the time to prove how proud you are. I'm not proving anything. Then what are you doing? Nadia placed both hands on the table. I don't want to take what belongs to you in exchange for leaving a marriage that no longer belongs to me. Marcus's smile disappeared. You haven't worked full-time in years. You need to be realistic. Nadia studied him. Not because the words hurt. Because they finally revealed how he had viewed those years. You're right, she said. Marcus nodded as though he had won the argument. You're right. I haven't worked full-time for your company. She opened her handbag. But that doesn't mean I haven't worked. She removed a thinner folder. This contains a preliminary record of assets and interest I owned before our marriage or maintained independently during it. My lawyer will provide the formal documentation. Marcus frowned. What assets? The question carried genuine disbelief. Nadia almost felt sorry for him. For years, when she talked about design projects, Marcus had asked what they were having for dinner. When she mentioned property investments, he called them your little investments. When she said she needed to meet an accountant, he barely looked up from his phone. He had never forbidden her from building anything. He simply never believed what she was building mattered enough to ask about. There are a few things, Nadia said. Marcus shrugged. Keep them. I intend to. Daniel began reviewing the paperwork. Then his phone vibrated. He opened an electronic file. His expression changed. Marcus. What? There is something concerning the company's property portfolio. Deal with it later. I think you should see this. Daniel turned the screen toward him. Marcus read the document. Then read it again. 2 of the most profitable restaurants in his group were not actually located on land owned by his company. They were long-term leases. And the properties belonged to Harborston Meridian Holdings. Marcus looked up slowly. Harborston Meridian. Nadia remained silent. That's your family company. Yes. Marcus stared at the documents. You own this. Not entirely. What does that mean? I hold a controlling interest. Silence filled the room. Marcus looked at the papers again. Then at his wife. You've been controlling the company that owns those properties. Yes. But you told me your family had some properties. You never asked for details. Marcus looked genuinely stunned. Nadia picked up her indigo notebook. There was no smug smile on her face. No celebration. No revenge. Because the thing that gave her peace was not that Marcus had discovered she owned valuable property. It was that she had finally stopped needing him to know. She stood. Marcus watched her. Nadia. She looked at him. He couldn't finish the sentence. For the first time, the man who had spent years believing he understood his wife's value realized he had never truly known it. The next day, Nadia sat inside the headquarters of Harborston Meridian Holdings. The office overlooked Lagos from several floors above the city. Beside her sat her attorney, Amora Nwosu. Across from them were two property managers. Marcus's lawyer was there as well. There were no divorce papers on the table. Only lease agreements. Amora opened the first document. Harborston Meridian owns the two properties currently leased by Marcus's restaurant group. Nadia nodded. Yes. And you hold a controlling interest. Yes. Marcus folded his arms. I still don't understand why this was never made clear to me. Nadia looked at him. I told you. You told me your family had some properties. And you never asked beyond that. He opened his mouth. Then stopped. Amora placed another file on the table. The history of Harborston Meridian was not a story about sudden wealth. Nadia's mother had purchased the first property years earlier, when the area was still overlooked by many investors. After Nadia began earning money through design work, she invested some of her earnings into renovating and leasing the property. Instead of spending the profits, they reinvested them. Then they bought another property. Then another. Slowly. Carefully. There had been no miracle inheritance. No secret billionaire relative. No sudden fortune. There had simply been years of disciplined investment. Years Marcus had never considered important enough to understand. So why did you lease these properties to my company? He asked. Because you needed good locations. You could have charged me more. I could have. How much below market? Amora answered. Approximately 17% below comparable commercial rates when the agreements were originally signed. Marcus looked at Nadia. You never told me. Nadia tilted her head. You never asked why you were getting prime locations at unusually favorable rates. Marcus leaned back. I thought my team negotiated well. No one laughed. Nadia remembered all those years. Marcus coming home excited because he had secured another excellent location. She could have explained everything. But she didn't. Because back then, she believed there was no reason to divide credit inside a marriage. If Marcus succeeded, she was happy. If his company grew, their family benefited. But generosity left unacknowledged for too long can slowly become entitlement. Daniel reviewed the agreements. These leases remain legally valid. Yes, Amara said. The divorce doesn't automatically terminate them. No. Marcus looked at Nadia. So you're not taking the properties back? Why would I? I thought you might use them against me. Nadia shook her head. They're business assets. She paused. Your employees work there. Suppliers depend on those locations. Families depend on the salaries from those restaurants. I will not turn property into a weapon because our marriage failed. Marcus was silent. Then what do you want? Nothing beyond what the contracts require. He stared at her. If Nadia demanded money, he could call her greedy. If she demanded his restaurants, he could call her bitter. If she threatened his business, he could portray himself as the victim. But she was doing none of those things. She simply wanted the boundary between her property and his business to be respected. Daniel turned another page. There is one more matter. One of the leases enters its scheduled rent review period soon. Marcus immediately looked at Nadia. How much are you increasing it? It isn't my decision. Then whose? An independent valuation team. Marcus laughed bitterly. So now you're going to treat me like an ordinary tenant? Nadia held his gaze. After our divorce, how exactly do you expect me to treat you? Silence. For years, love and business had been mixed together in ways that benefited Marcus. He had received her expertise, her introductions, her ideas, her property, her generosity, without ever having to calculate their value. Now Nadia wasn't taking those things away. She was simply no longer giving them away for free. The meeting ended without shouting. As Marcus reached the door, he stopped. Nadia. She looked up. Why did you never tell me you own this much? She thought carefully before answering. Maybe because I once believed the husband shouldn't need to know how much his wife is worth before he respects her. Marcus stood still. Nadia continued. But I was wrong about something too. What? I thought silence was humility. She looked directly at him. Sometimes silence simply teaches people to become comfortable with not seeing you. Marcus left. Nadia remained seated. She looked down at the contract. And she realized the most important thing she was reclaiming was not the land. It was the right to name her own contribution. Meanwhile, Tara was beginning to discover that the life she thought she had won was not what she imagined. Marcus had once made her believe Nadia was distant, ungrateful, unsupportive. A woman who no longer understood ambition. Tara had believed him. Because believing him made her own choices easier to justify. Now she was living in Marcus's world. And the cracks were beginning to show. One evening, Marcus entered their home carrying his briefcase. We have a problem. Tara looked up. What happened? The rent is going up. How much? Enough. Tara waited. Marcus loosened his tie. Stone calls it a market adjustment. Isn't that what the contract requires? Marcus looked sharply at her. That sounds like something Nadia would say. Tara paused. I was asking a business question. The restaurants were built around those locations. Then negotiate. I intend to. He walked around the kitchen island. But Nadia won't listen to me. Tara frowned. What do you want me to do? Marcus said nothing. That silence told her everything. You want me to speak to people in her professional circle. You know some of the developers she works with. About what? Make them understand that increasing the rent too aggressively could hurt the restaurant group. Tara stared at him. You want me to pressure her through business contacts. I want you to protect the company you helped build. There it was. A sentence that once would have made Tara feel important. You helped build it. But now it sounded different. Marcus, I can help prepare a negotiation strategy. I can review the financial projections. But I'm not going to call people privately to pressure your former wife. His expression changed. Former wife. Tara looked at him. What should I call her? You're missing the point. No. I think I'm finally understanding the point. Marcus laughed without humor. Please don't start this. Start what? This moral performance. Tara folded her arms. Do you remember the investor presentation I prepared? What does that have to do with this? You presented it last week. Yes. You removed my name. I improved the presentation. You removed my name. Marcus stared at her. It was a company presentation. Tara almost smiled. The sentence suddenly sounded familiar. So because I work for the company, my work doesn't need attribution. Why are women suddenly obsessed with getting credit for everything? The room became completely still. Tara looked at the man she had once admired. And suddenly she understood something. She had believed Nadia was the problem. She had believed Nadia didn't appreciate Marcus. She had believed Marcus's story because it made her feel chosen. But now she was seeing the pattern for herself. Praise when he needed her. Dependence when she was useful. Silence when he no longer wanted to acknowledge her contribution. Tara looked toward the windows. The beautiful house. The expensive furniture. The lifestyle she once considered victory. She had not inherited Nadia's life. She had stepped into a role Nadia had finally refused to keep playing. I won't make those calls, Tara said. Marcus stared at her. Excuse me. I'll help negotiate professionally. That's my job. But I won't use personal relationships to pressure Nadia into giving you a financial advantage. You're being dramatic. No. Her voice remained calm. I'm setting a boundary. Marcus picked up his briefcase. Interesting. You didn't care much about boundaries when I was married. The words hit her. Tara lowered her eyes. He was right about one thing. She had crossed a boundary then. She knew it. She had participated in something that hurt another woman. But accepting responsibility for that mistake did not mean she had to spend the rest of her life accepting whatever Marcus demanded. "You're right," she said. Marcus stopped. "I crossed the boundary then. I'm not proud of it." He turned. "But making one bad decision doesn't mean I have to keep making bad decisions to prove that I love you." Tara walked away. Marcus remained standing there. And for the first time, Tara understood something that frightened her. She had once believed she had won. Now she wasn't sure there had been anything to win at all. For the first time, Nadia understood something she had never allowed herself to consider. She had not walked away from Marcus because she was incapable of competing for him. She had walked away because she had finally realized that winning a man who required her to lose herself was never really a victory. And that realization changed everything. 3 weeks after the divorce proceedings began, Nadia sat at the head of a long walnut conference table inside Harborston Meridian Holdings. Morning sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the elegant ivory suit she wore. Her old indigo notebook rested beneath her hands. Across from her sat Amora Nwosu and 2 members of the property management team. A large screen displayed an independent valuation report. The numbers were clear. The preferential lease Marcus had enjoyed for years was no longer commercially reasonable. Amora removed her glasses. "You have 3 legitimate options." Nadia looked at her. "I'm listening." "You can renew the lease at the independent market rate." She paused. "You can negotiate a reasonable transition period." Amora turned another page. "Or, once the existing contractual obligations are completed, you can choose not to continue the commercial relationship." Nadia understood exactly what that final option meant. Without that location, Marcus would have to relocate one of his most profitable restaurants. He would need to find another property, redesign the interior, move his employees, rebuild customer traffic. The financial damage could be significant. For a brief moment, Nadia imagined Marcus receiving the notice. She imagined his confidence disappearing. She imagined him finally experiencing what it felt like when another person made a decision capable of changing his life. But strangely, she felt no satisfaction. Nadia looked at Amora. "If Marcus were a tenant I had never married, what would you recommend?" Amora studied her. "Market rate renewal with a reasonable transition period." "Then that's what we'll offer." One of the property managers looked surprised. "Mrs. Adebayo, you're within your rights to take a much harder position." "I know. There are other interested tenants." "I know that too." Nadia lowered her eyes toward the indigo notebook. "This isn't a favor." She looked up. "It's a standard." That distinction mattered. For years, Nadia had allowed the boundaries between marriage and business to disappear. She had given Marcus favorable terms because she believed his success was their success. She had designed spaces without charging him, made introductions without commissions, shared ideas without demanding recognition. But the marriage was ending. And Nadia had no intention of allowing bitterness to become her new business strategy. "Prepare the renewal," she said. "Independent market rate. Give the company enough time to adjust operationally. No punishment clauses." Amora nodded. "Fair. Exactly." The meeting had barely ended when Marcus arrived. He walked into the room wearing a charcoal suit with a bright woven pocket square. His clothes were immaculate, but they could not hide the tension on his face. "I received the proposal." Nadia remained seated. "Then you know the terms." Marcus placed the document on the table. "You call this reasonable?" "The valuation firm does." "You know what an increase like this would do to restaurant margins?" "Yes." "Then reduce it." "No." Marcus's expression hardened. "Nadia, you said you weren't trying to destroy me." "I'm not. This feels personal." Nadia glanced toward the valuation report. "There is nothing personal in that document." Marcus stared at her. "You own the company. You know exactly what this increase will do. And that is precisely why I asked an independent firm to value the property." He said nothing. For years, Marcus had become accustomed to Nadia bending before he even had to ask. A phone call. An introduction. A reduced lease. A design completed quietly over a weekend. Her generosity had been so consistent that he had eventually stopped recognizing it as generosity. Now neutrality felt like punishment. "You could keep the old rate," he said. "I could. But you won't." "No." "Why?" Nadia paused. Because your business should never have depended indefinitely on my company subsidizing it. Marcus's jaw tightened. So now everything has a price? No. She looked directly at him. Everything always had a value. We simply chose not to calculate it while we were building a life together. Marcus gave a bitter laugh. You've changed. Yes. The simplicity of her answer unsettled him. He walked toward the windows. I suppose this is your revenge. Nadia almost felt disappointed. He still needed that explanation. If she were angry, he could dismiss her as bitter. If she wanted money, he could call her greedy. If she tried to hurt his restaurants, he could tell everyone his former wife was punishing him. But fairness gave him no villain. No, Marcus. Nadia stood. Revenge would be using my ownership to hurt you because I can. She placed the renewal agreement between them. This is me refusing to hurt myself just to keep making your life easier. Marcus turned around. For once, he had no immediate response. Nadia continued. Your employees have families. Your suppliers have businesses. Your managers have built careers around those restaurants. She pushed the agreement slightly toward him. I will not disrupt their lives because our marriage failed. Marcus's expression shifted. But I also won't continue giving away value because I used to love the man receiving it. The words landed quietly. Not cruelly. Just honestly. Marcus stared at the agreement. So this is business now? Nadia nodded. The business is business. She paused. The rest is something we both have to learn to leave behind. Marcus picked up the document. Then he walked toward the door. Nadia watched him leave without triumph. And in that moment, she discovered a different kind of power. Power that did not require making another person smaller. For years, she had believed strength meant enduring more. Giving more. Forgiving more. Asking for less. Now she understood something else. A woman could remain compassionate without remaining permanently available for exploitation. She could choose fairness without offering unlimited access to everything she had built. And sometimes the clearest boundary wasn't revenge at all. It was simply the moment she stopped giving someone a discount on her value because they had once held a special place in her heart. Several weeks later, sunlight flooded a newly renovated creative studio in the heart of Lagos. Warm walnut panels covered the walls. Polished concrete floors reflected the morning light. Contemporary African artwork decorated the reception area. Handcrafted furniture stood beside elegant architectural models. At the center of the reception wall were large brushed brass letters. Adam Atelier. Nadia stood beneath them. She wore an emerald green tailored suit over a burnt orange silk blouse. For years, she had placed her name behind someone else's. Now she had finally decided to build something that carried her own. There were no photographers waiting outside. No champagne tower. No billionaire investor arriving to rescue her. Just a business. Her business. A young project manager named Sod approached carrying a tablet. The hospitality client approved the revised concept. Nadia turned. All of it. Almost. What did they change? They want to remove the locally woven wall panels. Why? Sod smiled. They think imported Italian stone will look more luxurious. Nadia shook her head. Tell them luxury isn't the same thing as importing everything. Sod laughed. I knew you'd say that. Nadia smiled. Then you're learning quickly. She walked across the studio. On one side were shelves filled with Nigerian ceramics, fabric samples, stone finishes and pieces created by local furniture makers. On the other side, architects worked at white desks beneath pendant lights inspired by traditional woven baskets. Nothing about the studio had appeared overnight. Nadia had used income from her property investments, savings from previous design work, and a conservative business loan secured against one commercial asset. She had hired 6 people instead of 60. Leased the office instead of buying it. Rejected an expensive launch campaign. And invested the money in design software, skilled staff and a proper project management system. For the first time in years, she was building something without needing anyone else's permission. Amora entered carrying a leather folder. You look busy. Nadia smiled. That's generally what happens when people open companies. Amora laughed. I brought the final registration documents. Nadia accepted the folder. Everything completed. Everything. Amora looked around the studio. You could have made this much larger. I could have. You have the assets. I also have common sense. Amora laughed. That may make you unusual. Nadia placed the documents on her desk. Her old indigo notebook was already there. The edges were worn. Several pages were beginning to separate from the binding. She opened it carefully. Sketches filled the pages. Restaurant layouts. Lighting concepts. Furniture measurements. Customer flow ideas. Ideas Marcus had once dismissed as her little drawings. Sod walked past and stopped. Are those yours? Nadia nodded. Sod leaned closer. This looks like the original concept for Marcus's first flagship restaurant. It is. You designed that? Yes. Sod looked genuinely surprised. I thought his company developed the entire concept internally. That is what most people thought. Doesn't that bother you? Nadia ran her fingers gently across the old page. It used to. She closed the notebook. Now I'm more interested in making sure it doesn't happen again. And that was the difference. Nadia no longer wanted to spend her life demanding recognition for the past. She wanted to build systems that protected recognition in the future. Every designer at Adam Atelier would have their contribution documented. Every presentation would identify who created the work. Contractors would receive proper credit. Creative ownership would not disappear simply because someone more powerful stood closer to the microphone. Nadia had learned that lesson painfully. She intended to make it useful. Her phone vibrated. A message from Marcus. I heard about the studio. Congratulations. Nadia stared at the screen. A second message appeared. I didn't realize you still wanted to design professionally. She almost smiled. Still wanted. As though ambition were something she had left forgotten in a wardrobe. Nadia typed. I never stopped wanting it. I stopped making room for it. She sent the message and put her phone away. Amora had seen enough to understand. Marcus. Yes. What does he want? That's new. Nadia gave her a warning look. Be kind. Amora smiled. I am a lawyer. Kindness is built separately. Nadia laughed. And even she was surprised by the sound. For months, every conversation involving Marcus had carried weight. Now his name could enter a room without changing its temperature. That felt like progress. A moment later, Sod returned carrying a presentation board. One more thing. What? The new client wants you personally in the presentation. Nadia raised an eyebrow. Why? They said they want to hear the design philosophy directly from the woman who created it. The words settled quietly inside Nadia. For years, she had believed supporting Marcus meant temporarily putting her ambitions aside. The temporary pause became a habit. The habit became an identity. Eventually, everyone around her began treating her absence from professional life as evidence that she had never truly belonged there. Including Nadia herself. She picked up the indigo notebook. Tell them I'm ready. Sod grinned. I already did. Nadia smiled. Then she looked toward the windows. The city stretched before her. And for the first time, she wasn't looking at it as someone's wife. She was looking at it as the woman who had finally decided to take her own place in it. Thanks for watching, see you in our next video and bye for now.